I think there's one thing we have to figure out before we start this episode number 3,
Yes.
and that is often when people go in part of a project is like, a priori, they figured out who's the good cop and who's the bad cop. So I'm asking you, who is the good cop and who's the bad cop? I'll be the good cop.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, anytime.
Chapter 1.
I do have a reputation to uphold, you know.
You do, absolutely.
I do.
And that sort of raises the question in my mind, if you're going to be the bad cop, about courage, which I will very happily sort of represent, and corruption.
That's me.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
So what we have in our society are polar opposites in power right now. There doesn't seem to be a huge middle. And it seems that you have, on the one side, you have courage, people who are willing to risk career, life, and limb, and power, in a sense, to do the right thing. And you have corruption. And that corruption doesn't have to be sort of a this for that. It can just be moral corruption.
I think a lot of people find it confusing now because it's not clear who's acting. It's often being, in the media, it's being portrayed that the other side is being immoral. So it's like, I've had some debates with my son about this, that is everything just relative based on your position, so that like, oh, the other side is behaving immorally. They're hurting our country or hurting the values that we hold dear. And then you go to the other side and they're saying the same thing about, and so is there a bedrock morality or is there not? Is it all just kind of, this has been debated for centuries.
So yes, and
Yeah.
I have my own view, but I'm curious as to what your son and what you came up with.
Well, these philosophical debates, they never end, but I caution anyone from feeling like, oh, it's all just relative based on your position in life, because, you can push that to the extremes and you can't, I use obviously Nazi Germany often as an extreme example, and you can't, there's no arguing that even though Germans felt what they were doing was for the good of Greater Germany, that that was morally correct position. So there's not you can't have a relative position as far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of the world is concerned. Not everyone in the world. I'm well aware of that. There are people that don't see what happened in Germany in World War II as the ultimate evil, but I do think there's a bedrock morality.
Yeah, I would concur. I think there's different countries that can teach us different things. You were just talking about Germany, and Germany has some wonderful stuff. That's one aspect of Germany that has taught a kind of moral extreme lesson. Then we could look at Russia today. Under Vladimir Putin, there's a lot of misinformation coming from them, which is clogging up Americans' ability to discern fact from fiction. And that's quite intentional. It's a whole propaganda campaign. But there's one country that I wanted to mention, in addition to those two countries, that has had a profound, I think, negative effect on the United States, and that's the country of France, by way of a philosophy that I feel has been sort of leading up to our current level of moral degradation. Wow. And the philosophy is called deconstructionism. It came over to the United States, and basically it's a literary criticism type of philosophy that says words have no meaning. Words have no meaning. They just point to other words. There's no fixed reality. Everyone has their own separate little bubble of relativistic consciousness. And the scientific worldview just wilts under the bright light of this deconstructionist philosophy. This philosophy came over the United States in the 70s by way of a Yale professor named Paul de Man, who from whom this philosophy spread to all the universities. And rather than having all these students in grad school, journalism and philosophy and writing, rather than learning the craft of writing, they all sat around in a kind of mental masturbation kind of position and said, words have no meaning. And so they didn't do much except go in a circle of, like a rut. And I'll finish with that idea with the thought of, it was discovered at a certain point that Paul de Man was a Nazi empathizer, and he'd left his wife and his family back in Europe. Oops. With no support. And when that was discovered and it started getting the press, what did Paul de Man do? He said, don't use words to criticize me. Words have no meaning. So you can't hold anyone into account. There's no accountability. There's no checks and balances if you diffuse the power of language. And France, which sent this over to us, was laughing. And don't get me wrong, I love France. I love French culture. A lot of things. It's just an amazing country. But this was their response to us sending, Disney and McDonald's over there. And they're like, their intellectuals are laughing at us like these idiots Americans. They're, monsieur. They're like getting on with the reality of existence, and the Americans are just running around in circles.
So is this something that you think that has a tail, or that affects things today?
Yeah, I just told you the tail. They were running around chasing their tails. It totally does, Eric, in this sense that people look at the alt-right, and they look at QAnon, they look at Donald Trump, and they say, oh my God, the right is so wacky and so disconnected from reality. I would agree. However, you could also look at the left and say, it's not the same, but there's a similar disconnect from the real world, this objective reality where things actually happen. And both sides of the spectrum, that's how we started this conversation. It's like the middle is missing. Both sides seem to be very confused about reality. And in that sense, there's a distortion of reality. And people are getting hurt, people are confused, and it's just very hard to differentiate between courage and corruption and have courage come out on top.
Chapter 2. So in this episode, we are lucky enough to have a special guest to talk about the book that we've chosen. And that book would be
Endgame, Inside the Impeachment of Donald J. Trump by Representative Eric Swalwell.
Yeah, and you and I both read it, Mark, and a mutual friend, Eric Olson, is going to join our conversation about the book. And Eric had a part in encouraging Eric Swalwell to write this book, asking him questions as he went along, and he'll talk all about that when we talk with him. And Eric is also is active politically on the city level, on the county level, at the university level, and
he's also a poet.
He's an incredible poet. He and I write music together.
He's a man of all seasons. He's kind of enlightened Renaissance person.
There you go. So looking forward to our conversation. Okay, so here we are. So here we have Eric Olson with us, and I'm so grateful you're with us to chat about Endgame and all sorts of other things here. But so welcoming you, Eric. It's great to have you with us.
Yeah, this is awesome. Glad you guys read the book and we're looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah. We were very, very moved by it. I was really curious. I was really glad. I was saying to Mark, I was really glad that the book had elements of Congressman Swalwell's life, of his early life, and his, talking about his dad being a police chief and refusing to bend to the.
Right.
To the mayor who wanted him to cancel out the parking tickets. I thought that was really very powerful part of the book. It kind of set up the stage for his wanting to hold Trump to account later on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a defining, part of his life, right? I mean, it's sort of a foundational thing. And it comes through in the book how, his dad, didn't bend to the will of the, sort of the town fathers when his dad was police chief, and didn't disregard the tickets that were given, or that kind of thing. And it was it's about doing what's right, and doing what's right, whether you're a small town police chief or whether you're the president of the United States or an ambassador or anybody in between. Yeah, no, it's true.
Makes me think of what you were saying, Mark, about courage. There's a level of courage versus corruption, right? You were saying.
Absolutely. And one of the things I've been thinking about lately, reflecting from Eric Swalwell's book, is when you have courageous people, oftentimes it pushes and holds in check the corruption. And one of my questions for you, Eric Olson, is, do you feel, you've been in the political arena for quite a bit. Your toes are deeper into those deeper waters than far beyond my experience. I followed as a kid what was happening with Nixon and the Watergate process. Do you feel, speaking of courage and corruption, do you feel now that the nation has tipped, that we've lost control of our ability to have checks and balances on corruption? Just to summarize, it seems that Eric's book, Endgame, is about two major investigations, the Russian and then the Ukrainian investigation, which of course led to impeachment. Both times Trump squeaked by. Mm-hmm. It just seems that he's learned from what Nixon was held by. Are we in a new stage here?
Wow, that's a lot in that question, Mark. I think you're right that there's a lot of. You saw during the Nixon, time, you saw members of his party, come out and stand for the right things and call for his resignation, and who had the courage, right? I think what you see today, the divisions based on sort of you have social media, you've got Facebook, you've got the polarization has happened in those intervening 40, 50 years, right? Whereas you've got the narrow perspective, and then the congressional districts that are very much either Republican districts or Democratic districts, right? And so then you're appealing not to the center. There aren't that many people that are left in the middle anymore. There are people in the middle, clearly, but within congressional districts, it leans one way or another. And Republicans are concerned about getting challenged from the right. Some Democrats are concerned about getting challenged from the left. But you don't have, Walter Cronkite coming on the news every night telling America, like, this is how it is, right? And is trusted by, I don't know what is right. I think it was 90% of people or more, trusted Walter Cronkite, right? If I've lost Cronkite, I've lost America. Basically, that's what, Lyndon Johnson said about Vietnam. Once Walter Cronkite said, this is not, this is not an endeavor we should be in, he knew it was all over, right?
Wow.
Incredible.
And we don't have that. People, and Donald Trump has made, a political career out of questioning media, basically saying from day one, before day one, he was basically saying, don't listen to the media, discrediting the media. And that just sowed enough doubt in a lot of people that sort of, it just becomes this thing like, well, you can't trust anybody, well, if you can't trust anybody, then you can say whatever you want. Like I can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, or whatever the lie of the day is, or the 20 lies of a day is, and get away with it. So I think there's it's broader than just, is there courage? I mean, yes, courage is a huge part of that. And you see in Eric Swalwell's book, the many people that he cites, the ambassadors, the career, people who have been in civil service for a long time, Vindman. I mean, yep. Vindman, who immigrated here from Ukraine as a young boy with his brother, and loves this country and is willing to do the right thing and stand up for it. And he's made it all the way to the White House. I mean, that's about as far as you can get in his field, and willing to put it all out there. So yeah, there's of course courage is needed, but some people aren't going to even listen to whistleblower because they've been discredited before the act even happened. I mean, this is premeditated, on Trump's part, premeditated discrediting, right?
Premeditated discrediting. Lord.
I mean, it's a campaign. I mean, it is. I mean, that's how I think it is.
So you feel with social media and this increased polarization, as you're pointing out, you think the country has had problems in its history before. Yeah. Has it ever been this bad? What's your prognosis, doctor?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, look, we've had a civil war, we've had a Great Depression, we've had slavery, we've had so many awful, times in this country. We've had, Jim Crow and, lynching. And I mean, no one's going to say, is this the worst time or is this now we do have, an environmental crisis upon us, which, I don't think we've ever faced that kind of crisis in terms of the environment, right? Which is going to spin off a whole bunch of other things. I mean, we're seeing wildfires now. We're seeing, 10% of Oregon is displaced. You're going to see fertile agricultural land that's going to be unusable. Those are big issues. I mean, yes, we had the Dust Bowl, and that was a huge crisis as well. But I mean, do I have hope? I do think that in the end, people, hopefully enough people will see what's going on. But this time, I think the media is we're in a much tougher place in terms of actually getting the word out and getting people to hear. I mean, we can't even agree on facts, some people in this country. I mean, but I'm not saying most people. I think a lot of people get it. A lot of people, whether you're sort of a middle of the road person, whether you're on the left, whether you're kind of a little right of center, a lot of people still get some of it, but there's a lot out there that's polarizing people. And I think you've never had in the past, you've had the pamphlets in the newspapers that were run by particular interests. I mean, the editors of certain newspapers were the mouthpiece for certain ideology. And so I think that, this isn't exactly new, but what's new is that you can press a button and instantly reach, millions of people and do that day after day after day, tweet at 3 a.m. and, blow up the world. I mean, metaphorically blow up the world, words have consequences, right? Words can change markets. Words can turn people into haters. I mean, words can make people hate their neighbor and question their neighbor. And when you say that, whatever, immigrants are rapists and murderers and keep repeating that, I mean, unfortunately, that can be a powerful thing. And
when you create the standard,
evil.
When you create the standard that I'm starting my campaign with that,
right?
And people, it gets through, then we're definitely speaking a different language,
right.
Because that's rewriting the rule book. So,
right.
Just back to the Swalwell, the fact that he wanted to hold Trump accountable and be a part of that. He says, like, we can't let this pass, because if we do, then the next person that comes along, the next corrupt person, is going to think, that was allowed, so I can go this far. So you have to set down the floodgates. This is
unacceptable.
Or whatever.
This is unacceptable, and there has to be consequences. I mean,
right.
The country's too important.
Right.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't do something, and it's you don't enforce the rules. We're a country of laws, right? I mean, that's what's set us apart for many years, that we're a country of laws, and other places are unfortunately not. It's a country of who has the most power, who has the lineage, or the that kind of thing. And the rule of law is important, but if you throw that to the wind, we've lost.
Eric Swalwell seems to have an incredible amount of courage and strength in the face of this disinformation and hatred. And I seem to recall reading somewhere in the book Endgame mention of death threats, and he seems to have a real solid moral backbone. My question would be, Eric, having known him for a while, and apparently, I guess you helped him get started in his political career or encouraged him. I was just wondering if you have any insights as to what he was like back then, and what kind of colors was he showing back then?
Oh man, I mean, Eric Swalwell is just a great guy. I mean, he's genuine. He's smart. He's witty. He cares, and then that showed through when he was an undergraduate student at the University of Maryland, and I knew him when I first met him. It was probably 2001, I think, and I was in the city council here in College Park, and he was a student. And he came to the city council meeting and introduced himself, and he was just very impressive, but not in that way that, I don't know, sometimes you have like student government people, and they're, they want to be someone rather, Eric he was down to earth and he was very mature. I guess that's what I'll say. He wasn't putting on a show, it was who he is. And he was very respected. I mean, he became the student liaison to the city council. We created that position, actually, he and I, and wow. Which continues to this day. So there's a student, every year there's a student who basically sits on the College Park City Council as a non-voting member. And I remember one time Eric came to a community meeting, and I forget what he was even talking about, but it was something, or a host of issues. And, this is pretty skeptical residents of a college town. And he talked to them, and he had people twice his age, 3 times his age, maybe even 4 times his age, like right here. It's like in the palm of his hand. He was talking and people were listening. And I remember seeing that. I was like, wow, this is, he's like 20 years old, right?
Wow.
And these are people who were, very good people, but they probably, you'd never seen a student. I had never seen a student handle themselves that well, and it was a pretty amazing thing. But really genuine guy, and wanted to make a difference even back then. And I could, you could just tell, like, this is someone who knows what they're doing, and it's natural, very natural to him.
Right. And he made a run for president. That was
right.
that maybe that wasn't even a surprise to you. Like he got all the way to the debate stage.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it's funny. Like I said, when he was a student here, I said, boy, he's going to go far. I mean, and again, not in that sort of political, sort of gross political way, but just like, wow, he's really got talent and got a heart and smarts and wit, and he's going places. And then 10 years later, he was in Congress, and it didn't surprise me, although it was pretty quick. I mean, 10 years is not a very long time between college and getting elected to Congress. So,
right.
Yeah, no, he did a great job, and running for president. He did a great job as well, and he was all over the country, and he was raising issues, and he made an impression on a lot of people. And when it didn't look like he was getting traction, I mean, look, it's a tough thing to run for president. He bowed out gracefully and very much a team player. So,
I think in my experience observing presidential campaigns, there comes a point where in order to win, somebody has to lie about what they can offer the American people. Otherwise, one doesn't get to the next level. I don't know if that's entirely true. It's just, it might be just tomorrow I turn 60 years old, so maybe I'm just getting a bit jaded. I hope not. I'd like to think I'm getting younger.
Yeah.
But do you think that Eric is too kind-hearted, big-hearted, and honest and transparent to become a future president of the United States?
Well, first, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
You think you're getting younger? It sounds like I was so much older then. I'm younger than now, right, Mark? You.
A beautiful song, and I'm also reminded of the story of the great wizard Merlin, who, according to some Arthurian legends, each year that went by, he'd get 1 year younger.
Yeah. Good.
And
good.
My close friends know how immature I am, and hopefully you'll see that too.
Well, I always love that line, and I think we all can appreciate that line, because I think that, when you're younger, you think you know a lot, and, you might know a lot, but as the years go by, you realize that you don't know. I don't know if that's what Dylan was saying, but that's what it says to me. Anyway, but your question was about lying or running for office and holding principles and do you have to be? I'm probably butchering your question a little bit, but look, I've always been a believer that people can look through politicians. Not everybody. I mean, you can fool some of the people. Some of the old quote about can't fool all the people all the time. I do trust, voters in a lot of respects. In this current media era, it's probably tougher, but I do think that people appreciate authenticity, and people when they see someone who does care and is trying to do the right thing and who connects with people like on a genuine level. I think a lot of people see that. And that's who Eric is. Now there's some people who can fool you. There's plenty of people out there who will try to fool people and look like they're, you understand them, but, really it's a charade. It's a game. But I think that, Eric's got that, genuine authenticity to him. I know he does. I mean, I know his constituents love him, in California. And everybody who's ever known him that I know, that I've ever seen him interact with from age 20 to, today, has seen that in him. So
two interjections.
Yeah.
One is I feel the same about you as a political person.
Oh,
and I think it's interesting that maybe it's just these different levels, because at our level of like county and city, I look at you and I totally trust you as I don't even want to call you a politician, because that word has almost has a something in the broad speak
right.
of it's kind of dirty or something. I hate to say that, but it's like, I totally trust you as a leader at our level, and so maybe something happens when people get to that national level. It's too much to try to contain, so people have to get a little squirmy or something. I don't know. And then Trump's obviously the extreme example of that.
Right.
But I know you've seen at this level, on the county level, it's not. There is plenty of squirminess. There can be. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but there can be even at these levels. But I'm just glad to see. I'm glad to have faith in local leaders. That makes me feel good as an American to have that feeling. Yeah, it really does. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah. Well, and there are good people in government. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, people love to say, oh, politicians are a bunch of crooks and, this and that. And there are plenty of bad politicians out there, believe me. But, people who are in it for the wrong reasons. But there's also people in there who are trying to do the right thing. And I think at the local level, Eric, I mean, you get to know your official. If the officials are doing the job that they should be doing, you actually do get to know them at some level. You see them at community events, you see them, out and about. They communicate with you directly. So in the ideal world, that's how it should work. Of course, we don't live in the ideal world, but there are people that will do that will reach out and that at a personal level. And I think that Eric, in his congressional district, he's known that way in a lot of respects. I mean, he did a lot of door knocking. Of course, a congressional district is like 500,000 people, but, he did a lot of door knocking. He's out and about a lot. He believes in being, in the community, and that makes a real difference. And people can, a lot of people can spot a phony. I mean, maybe not as many as we'd like, but a lot of people can. So
here's the other thing I was going to say, that I was really glad to read the book, because I actually, politicians write books, and I seldom get to read those or even choose to read them. And I read it because I had a personal connection with you. Yeah. And you've talked to me about Eric Swalwell, and obviously you having, you helping, assisting with writing the book or collecting information for the book, and you being a friend of mine. I was like, oh, I want to read this book. And actually Mark jumped on it first. He was reading it first, and he said, I'm reading it. I was like, I got to read it. So I'm really glad we both read it.
Yeah.
And it made me more, it made me realize that, also, I guess, as a kind of middle-aged, I think some of this stuff that was going past with the impeachment, I think, I was a little jaded. And so no matter how much integrity someone like Swalwell has in the news, I'm just like, I'll see a little video clip and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like what you become as a citizen with these kind of things, is where I can't sit and watch the impeachment hearings. Yeah. I can't sit and, I wait to see clips and I try to, you try to read up on things, but ultimately you end up like, remember they were talking in the book, they're talking about in Mueller, the testimony, it was more about like, how did it play? And rather than like, well, no, what was the substance of it? It was, how did it play? How did people, how did he, was he lackluster, or was he, as if that matters. Right. But when you're trying to reach people, then you need theater, and I don't have a final thought on that. It kind of struck me that like, even when Swalwell was saying, he'd go in with this, like he was going to go with a mission for the day, and reading it, I was really moved. But I'm like, wow. But for your citizen, even just like someone like me, that, it almost doesn't matter one way or another, because I'm out just doing my job. I'm doing, and I can't, so I was really glad actually to hone in on that and realize how important, even though I knew it was important, really to read about what him and Pelosi and people and characters like Vindman and Yovanovitch and these folks that were, there was a major integrity play for me as a citizen to read about that. So,
right.
I'm really glad he documented that. I'm glad you were a part of helping me. I'm glad it was documented. I think documenting is very important.
It really is. And I'm so glad that he wrote it. And I will say, he's a friend of mine, and I helped him in terms of just like get started. He wrote the whole thing. All the words are his. But early on, it was sort of like I would send him questions, and he would, start writing from that, sort of prompts and things like that. And he would helpful. Just write, and he would get on the plane and fly to California, and he would write. And then he would just send me all this stuff, and I kind of put it. I think you should go in this order, that kind of thing, which is a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of fun to see his writing. He's a really good writer for
very good
sitting down and like writing, like then just sending the raw, stuff. I mean, it would be very clear and very. It was very impressive. And he told us. When he was on the Zoom earlier this summer, how he would, like the latter part of the book, especially about impeachment, he would put his daughter to bed and he would dictate it. He would be telling her the story, but dictating the book, wow. and I thought that was pretty cool. And also very much like Eric, like he would come up with that, like how to multitask like that. But your question was more
it was more statement.
More about. Yeah, but
I think it was more just those feeling. I'm really glad he documented, and I'm glad you guys. I'm glad it made it into the world, because that's what we have to do. We have to document these moments and show them to people, and in this case, show it to citizenry and say this was really important that this happened. And for me, it struck a chord. I know with Mark too, it struck a chord. So it's like that's really important, because otherwise stuff's marching along so fast, and then the impeachment happens, and then coronavirus shows up, and people almost you just like, okay, forget about that. It's like no, actually reflect on that, and that's why you need a document like that.
Well, and it's interesting that I'm sure he and all of them knew that it was a historic moment. I mean, clearly they all knew that, but I wonder, and I'd love to talk to him more about this. Like, how much were you like self-aware that this was? I mean, I remember one time texting him, one of those nights, like, this is really. I was like, this is a moment in history. Like, I mean, I knew he knew it, but I had to say it. Like, wow, you're in the middle of something like truly historic. Like, I think they knew it, but they have a job to do, and they're doing the job. And sort of like whenever we're doing our job, it's the day-to-day, the prep, the go in there and do it. And it's one of these things that people are going to be talking about. Historians are going to be talking about this for generations, right? Back to your question or your statement about, the substance versus the theater, I guess is what you might call it, right? I mean, not theater, but like how did Mueller look, when he was testifying, right? I mean, it's sort of like when Eric talks about in the book, like he got this text from one of these, a news anchor or news, someone we all know, although I don't think he named the person, Mueller is looking, tired, or is looking, and Eric's sitting there thinking, wow, this is really going great. He's answering these questions. And all it was like how Mueller looked. And I think that's a really important thing. I mean, especially now, when you have Trump, talking about people with low energy or with, it's like how you tag or define your opponent, let's say, that shouldn't matter. But in this age, that does.
Chapter 3. So we're going to take a pause from our conversation with Eric. I'm going to sing a song by an artist that I know Eric loves dearly, and Mark, I know you do, and I do too, and that artist is Richie Havens. And I've always had a great admiration for Richie, and I luckily got to meet Richie Havens before he passed away.
And he signed your guitar?
He signed my guitar, and I actually talked to him about this song that I'm going to play. And actually, the name of the song is "To Pull the Stone Up." And I said, "Oh, Richie, I love To Pull the Stone Up." And he said, "I wrote the title first." And I always thought that was like, I was like really face to face close with Richie Havens. He told me I wrote the title first. I thought it was great songwriter advice. And so anyway, I wanted to sing this song because I feel like it's it's a tribute to Richie and also to Eric, and so To Pull the Stone Up. To pull a stone up, it takes believing. To change direction, signals deceiving. To tell the truth is what they fear. All of us here can change tomorrow. To have a vision means we must stand still. A simple decision to kill the light, to stop the clock is what they fear. All of us here can change. Be who you are. Be who you are. Be who you are. Say what you're feeling. Say what you're feeling. Stone down means we are failing. To let the truth be ever revealing. To stop this slavery we are. Can change right now.
Oh, wow. A beautiful tribute.
Isn't he something else?
Wow. Wow. Did he play that song at Woodstock?
No, actually, amazingly, he came out with just an unbelievable album in 2003 that you can't find on Spotify. It's hard to find online, and it's called "The Grace of the Sun." And so he wrote it, later on, and I got to see him several times perform that one. I felt really lucky to get to see him, and we saw him one time at the Falcon Ridge Folk Festival, and it was like, all these amazing musicians, and then Richie Havens plays, and it's just like, it's kind of like a whole other galaxy, in terms of reverence for the performer and him for the audience too.
Of course, I think it's an appropriate song for you to play, given that Eric Olson is joining us in this episode of Take Me for a Ride, just based on the magical poetry, the lyrics that Eric Olson provides to Paint Branch Creek, the band that you're leading part of, and the powerful sense of justice and truth that rings through the song and through Eric Olson's songs, or which is to say your songs, and through his work as a politician. And I guess I've followed politics for many years, and I don't normally associate politicians with truth and justice and courage and beauty, but I do in this case.
Chapter 4.
Mr. Peach always sees the good in other fruits. I don't know if you know this, and if you did, I would try to ignore that part of your brain, as I always do. But the fact is, Mr. Peach went to Washington. And you know what he found there?
Skittles in the pocket of every Republican congressman there was.
Oh my God, the Skittles were unbelievable. A lot of them are melting, as well as the Skittles. It was incredible. But in addition to all that, dude, he met Mr. Courage and Mr. Corruption. And one of them said to him, the exact person I can't tell you because I got a lot of money not to talk. Whoops. I didn't. Whoops. He said, a peach for a pie, a peach for a pie, a peach for a pie, a peach for a pie. It was very poetic. It was more of like a question. Do you see what I mean? Like, a peach for a pie? It's all how you say it. A peach for a pie. Would you like a peach? Would you like some? For that peach, would you like some pie? For that peach, would you like some pie? Could you imagine the president of Ukraine saying something like, would you like some peach for a little bit of... I'm just saying he went to Washington. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Do you think he's jealous of watermelons?
Yes, I think...
I think of that because, I have a whole watermelon thing. It's definitely a big thing in my world, and I often wonder if there's jealousy. But I can't help it, my motivations. I have mixed motivations when I'm eating fruits, and I end up with watermelon in my mouth, and
my experience with watermelons is it's just the pits. Yeah. If you go somewhere and everywhere you meet someone who's a fruit, isn't that like an indication that there's something amiss? Omiss. I've been to Washington. Mr. Peach.
It's a swamp.
It's a swamp.
So
I had a funny experience in real life. I was in Washington once because I lived there, and I was walking around right by the White House, and there was some inner legislation. You could just tell by the way people were walking, and there was like the light changed or it wasn't changing. I forget exactly what's happening, but these people stopped and started and they were going to go and they didn't. And I looked at them and I made this comment. I was on my bicycle. I stopped there and I said, just like government, you can't figure out whether what you're doing. And they looked at me and they realized they were part of a metaphor that I would use someday in a segment on Mr. Peach.
And they knew it, huh?
Well, they knew it, but they wouldn't admit it. Anyway, they laughed. They said, "Oh my gosh," they said, and not much else. They didn't like invite me into the corridors of power or anything like that. But I was thinking, some pie for a peach, some peach for a pie. Did you ever go to the Elephants Memorial in Washington, D.C.?
You mean the tribute to Dumbo, or no? Not that.
That's nasty. Look, we try to keep things clean here. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that.
Hey, said the horse.
Oh my gosh. That's heavy. I would just avoid Washington entirely.
The swamp?
Yes.
The drump?
The drump. The drump. The drump. Dude, what did you... Wait, don't call me a moron. What?
Idiot? Village idiot?
I went to a place called the
Woodiot?
Village School. It was pretty cool. I was nobody's fool. There were no grades, no tests, no requirements.
No rule.
No rule. Imagine going to a job interview and just starting to say any word that comes into your mind. All right, just test it. Like you're looking for a job. Hi. So I'm looking for someone to help with COVID-19. What are your credentials? What are your qualifications?
Cayenne pepper?
Yes. Tell me more.
Rocky 1, 2, and 3.
All right, you're hired. That's great. I think that would work. I think if people
That's a strategy?
Yeah,
it's a life strategy.
It's a way to go. It's sort of, why are people so rigid in their thought structures? They're trying to get somewhere. Really, everyone dies at some point. So where are we going?
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. You didn't know that. Americans think if they just brush their teeth and floss, that they will live forever.
I thought that was the case.
Yeah. Well, not so. Sorry.
That's why I'm in this race.
Now, that's why we go for courage and not corruption.
Because?
I forget. Let me look it up.
What was? Okay, imagine this scenario.
Okay.
I have nothing in mind, but I'm just going to say it, and I want you to imagine this.
Okay. Are you done yet?
You can't rush this, okay?
I wasn't rushing things. Hold on a second. What time?
Rushing. You call it Russian things? Russian?
Hold that thought. What time is it? Hold on. How many minutes was this going to be?
Which part?
I don't know any part. What do I know about parts? Are you done?
No.
Okay, keep going. How about now?